She is a leader life coach. She is a TEDx speaker. She is a voice on Josh Talks. Miss Vidhya Arumugam.
Influence I've learned isn't about volume or theoretics. It's about the resonance. And that's when speaking stopped being a fear to manage and become a responsibility I chose.
What a powerful moment of self-realization this Vidya, and you captured the shift from fear to purpose so beautifully.
Leadership for me is about standing at the intersection where business, society, and system meet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another electric episode of FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, and today we are talking to a woman who has spent 15 plus years helping companies grow, evolve, and transform. A woman who has developed scalable business ecosystem from the ground up. A woman who has mentored founders, coached leaders, advised startups, trained professionals, and even stood on a TEDx stage after once being petrified of public speaking. She has helped organizations hit $1 million revenue marks, launched new products that shot sales up by 65% in just 120 days, expanded client portfolios, raised funds during crisis, and helped bring dialysis machines and BP monitors to over 1,300 plus police stations in Tamil Nadu. Her work stretches across social responsibility, tech, healthcare, Metaverse solutions, branding, financial structuring, and even book publishing. She is a business strategist. She is a leader life coach. She is a TEDx speaker. She is a corporate trainer. She is a voice on Josh Talks. She holds a doctorate on a deeply meaningful topic, the quality of life, work life of women in law enforcement and how it impacts their families. She is, in every sense of the word, a leader who grows by helping others grow. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to welcome Miss Vidhya Arumugam. Miss Vidhya, welcome to FaceTime with Leaders. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Sunny. Thank you so much. Every time I hear my journey described, I feel two things very strongly: humility and gratitude. Humility because nothing in my life has been linear, predictable, or perfectly planned. And gratitude because every failure, every second chance, every mentor, and every unseen supporter has quietly shaped who I am today. So rather than offering a polished highlight reel of my entire story, I would love to have a real conversation, one that includes the messy middle, the doubts, the wrong turns, the moments when things didn't go as expected and growth was unavoidable. Because leadership doesn't happen only in moments of success. It happens in how we respond when clarity is missing. If by end of this conversation, even one person feels a little more seen or a little more hopeful about their own journey, then this time together we'll have done its job, Sunny.
Great to hear that. So, looking forward to a great conversation ahead. And once again, welcome to the show. So, Ms. Vidya, your journey is rich, unconventional, and incredibly human. Let me begin with this. If you had to describe your career not as roles or organizations, but as a story filled with moments that shaped you, how did your journey unfold?
See, Sunny, if I go back to the very beginning, you wouldn't find boardrooms or strategy decks, and you would find a middle class living room in Tamil Nadu. Adults doing their best to make life work with limited resources and a lot of quiet resilience there. I didn't know the word strategy then, but I understood something fundamental very early. One decision about money, education, and health. Again, I'm repeating the decision about money, education, and health could shift the emotional climate of an entire household. That awareness stayed with me. I was a child who observed patterns, how people reacted under pressure, how certain choices repeated outcomes, sometimes how silence sometimes spoke louder than words. So, long before I had a job title, life was already training me to connect dots and step up when something simply needed to be done. The middle of my story is anything but straight. They were projects that succeeded beautifully and others that failed despite looking flawless on paper. One early initiative I strongly believed in, and had all the right data, logic, and presentation, and yet it didn't land. That failure taught me a hard truth. Numbers and models mean very little if people are not truly brought along. So it forced me to, confront the gap between knowing the framework and understanding human behavior. So slowly, I began to see how all these management theories, power dynamics, resistance to change, the groupthink, were playing out live with real consequences. So I would say that one significant shift happened when three strands of my work began to merge. One is strategy, coaching, and communication. I moved from executing plans to being invited into rooms where ambiguity needed structure, where leaders needed clarity, and where difficult truth had to be held with care. So looking back now, I don't see a neatly curated CV. I see moments where I chose courage over comfort, saying yes to a stage that scared me, speaking honestly when it wasn't convenient, owning the decision that didn't work out. So and still I see myself as work in progress. Titles may evolve, strategist, coach, trainer, speaker, soon to be a director, whatever it is, but the inner journey continues. So every client, every classroom, every crisis still teaches me something new about leadership and also about myself, Sunny.
That's such a beautiful journey, Miss Vidya. And you did not just move through roles, you evolved through experiences. And it's refreshing to hear the unpolished past too, Miss Vidya. That's where the leaders are actually shaped.
Thank you.
All right. So, continuing our conversation, you have built revenue models, launched new product lines, and guided companies through difficult decisions. Can you share a moment from your strategy career where you faced a real tough call and a moment where instinct, experience, and judgment mattered more than spreadsheets? Also, you had to make a decision that shaped an organization's future.
See, one moment stands out so clearly. I was working with an organization at a critical crossroads. On paper, the decision seemed obvious. A business line was underperforming, and the financial model strongly suggested shutting it down. So, if you looked only at the spreadsheets, there was no debate, but strategy doesn't live only in Excel, according to me. So I spent time with frontline teams, customers, and partners. I listened closely, not just to what they said, but how they said it. And a different picture emerged. What appeared unprofitable in the short term was actually where customers' behavior was quietly moving. The board was understandably anxious about quarterly performance. Every graph pointed toward exit. My experience and intuition were saying something else. If we walk away now, we may regret it later. So the real turning point came from a frontline manager who said very simply, customers are already behaving as if this is the future. Only our reports are still in the past. So that reframed everything for us. Instead of a clean exit, we chose a harder path, redesigning the business, tightening operations, and what we did is one more thing is repositioning the offering. So it wasn't easy story to sell. It required patience, not applause. So the months that followed were uncomfortable, but as the market evolved, the very business became a key growth driver. So the moment, that moment reinforced a belief I carry deeply. Strategy is not about choosing between data and instinct, it's about respecting both. Data should guide you, not imprison you. And sometimes leadership means taking a long term call in a short term world.
Absolutely, Miss Vidya. And that was such a vivid moment. Uh, you brought us right into the room where that decision was made. And the way you described the tension between instinct and data, that's
Mhm.
the kind of honesty leaders rarely talk about. All right. So, keeping this conversation alive, what I'd like to
Mhm.
ask you next is one of the
Mhm.
most inspiring parts of your journey is your shift from being afraid of public speaking to becoming a
Yes.
TEDx speaker and a Josh Talks voice.
Yes.
Was there a moment, maybe backstage or mid speech, when you realize that this isn't just about speaking, this is about purpose? And how did that moment shift your understanding of influence and leadership?
Sure. See, people often assume I've always been comfortable on stage. The truth is quite the opposite. My speaking journey began with a fast heartbeat, cold hands, even today, and the strong urge to disappear just before going on stage. I could advise leaders and negotiate complex decisions, but facing a silence audiences felt, terrifying. One talk changed everything, Sunny. Midway through the speech, I shared a deeply personal story about self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and the gap between, outward success and inner reality. When I looked up, I noticed a woman in the front row quietly wiping away her tears, still listening intently. That moment, something shifted for me. I realized this wasn't about a performance or perfection. It was about service, and my fear had kept me asking, will I be judged? Purpose asked a better question. If one person feels less alone, is it worth it? So from then on, the stage became an extension of my work as a strategist and coach, a place to give language to unspoken experiences and offer clarity where there is a confusion. So influence, what I've learned about influence I've learned isn't about volume or theoretics. It's about the resonance. And that's when speaking stopped being a fear to manage and become a responsibility I chose.
Wow, what a powerful moment of self-realization, Miss Vidya, and you captured the shift from fear to purpose so beautifully. The honesty in that story is truly refreshing, and it's rare to hear leaders talk about the shaky moments behind the spotlight. So, thank you so much for sharing that insight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Talking about your social impact, you have worked in social impact, raising funds during the pandemic, supporting dialysis machines and BP monitors across Tamil Nadu's police stations, and also partnering with foundations. What draws you personally to this kind of work? And how have these experiences shaped your definition of leadership?
This question is quite personal to me, Sunny. Like for me, social impact is not something I do on the side, of my corporate work. It is the same lens applied where the cushion is thinner and the consequences are more immediate. See, one image from the pandemic will stay with me forever. I was standing in the modest facility watching a dialysis machines being installed. The room was simple, harsh lights, maybe tired families. They were having a very quiet conversation, but you could feel the relief. For some people, this meant fewer exhausting journeys, more consistent treatment, and frankly, a little more dignity. In those moments, strategy and spreadsheets become very real. It's no longer about one more mission or X units deployed. It is about a father who can stay closer to a home, a mother who is not forced to choose between travel cost and medication. What pulled me into the space was a mix of professional responsibility and personal urgency. I could see gaps in access to care and equipment, in how decisions were being made, and I know I had certain skills that could be useful, designing models, mobilizing resources, building trust across institutions. It was not a smooth inspirational movie. Donations fell through, shipments got stuck, regulations slowed things down. There were nights of frustration and moments of accepting that we could not help everyone we wanted to, but those missing middle moments taught me humility. They reminded me that real change needs local partners, deep listening, and patience. You cannot parachute with a PowerPoint and assume you know what a community needs. All of this has fundamentally reshaped how I see leadership, Sunny. Today, leadership for me is about standing at the intersection where business, society, and system meet. It is about using your access, your networks, and your expertise to close gaps, not just to celebrate your own success story. And Also, and it is about a broader definition of success, not just the revenue and valuation, but the kind of lives and opportunities that exist because you chose to act, even when your name is never mentioned. Yeah.
Rightly said, Miss Vidya, and that felt incredibly real. There is something very grounding about the way you shared that. It shows what impact actually looks like on the ground. Let's move on to the next segment of questions. But before we do that, this is the favorite part of the podcast, at least mine favorite, which is
Mm-hmm.
called Rapid Fire Round. We have already
Mm-hmm.
covered thoughtful topics. Now it's time to have a little fun. Okay, so rapid questions, quick, instinctive answers. Are you up for it?
Okay, I'll try my best.
Okay. First question, the first thing you do when you wake up.
A few quiet minutes of gratitude before the world enters.
Really? Okay. Your comfort food after a long day.
Hot rice, sambar, and curd. I'm a typical South Indian girl.
Classic. One activity that instantly relaxes you.
Long, unhurried walks.
Okay. A book that changed the way you think.
The Surrender Experiment by Michael Shinga. Yeah.
Must read. A leader you genuinely admire.
Someone with a quiet strength and ethical clarity.
Okay. A movie you can rewatch endlessly.
Anything with us like the stories with layered characters, always revealing something new.
Okay. A country still on your travel bucket list.
Australia.
Okay. If you could have one superpower for a day, what would it be?
The ability to pause time and help overwhelmed people find clarity.
Wow. That was beautiful. Your favorite way to unwind on weekends?
Slow mornings, good coffee, deep conversations.
Great. One thing you never compromise on at work?
Dignity,
Okay. Absolute must. And the last question of the rapid fire round, success in one word.
alignment.
Amazing, amazing. So that was fun, that was sharp, and that was very interesting. Some of the unexpected answers. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so
Yeah.
all right, after such a fantastic rapid fire round, let's move on to the next segment of questions. And this
Mm-hmm.
segment talks about the challenges that the industry faces, the bigger picture. Miss Vidya,
Sorry?
yes, so this segment is about the challenges that the industry faces or the
Hmm.
bigger picture that we're talking about. And,
Okay.
every leader, especially one who works in strategy and organizational behavior, sees moments where integrity is tested in themselves or in the systems around them. Has there been an incident in your career or in the industry that made you pause and rethink how organizations should operate? And part B of my question is, what did that moment teach you about the importance of ethics and transparency in leadership?
See, there was a decision moving quickly, technically compliant, but communication was being managed in a way that didn't fully honor transparency. See, nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, but something felt off. I asked one simple question like, if we had to explain this decision to our families, would we use the same words? The room was quiet, and the past changed the course of the discussion. We slowed down, widened the conversation, and chose transparency over speed. See, it wasn't convenient, but protected trust and credibility. The conversations was not at all convenient one, but it did protect trust and credibility for us. That moment taught me this: ethics is not an add-on; it is a strategic asset. So transparency may cost speed, but it buys trust, and once trust is gone, rebuilding it is far harder. Yeah.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing that perspective. And all right, so this brings us to the last segment of the podcast. And let me ask
Hmm.
you,
Hmm.
since you have joined Directors Institute after years of
Yeah.
strategy work, leadership experience, advisory roles, corporate training, and
Hmm.
business consulting, I have to ask you this. What made you choose this program at this stage of your career? And what were you looking for? And did the experience shift your perspective in ways you did not expect?
By the time I joined the Directors Institute, I wasn't looking for credentials. I was looking for perspective. I had seen the gap between boardroom intent and grounded reality. I wanted to understand governance not as compliance but as stewardship. The program challenged me intellectually and emotionally. It pushed me to think in horizons, not quarters, to understand the fiduciary duty beyond shareholder returns. So, one simulation stayed with me. Faced with a crisis, someone asked, are we protecting this quarter or the next decade? The question now travels with me. Today, leadership for me means choosing durable trust over temporary applause. Governance isn't tested when things go well, it is revealed when things go wrong, actually. So, and the belief shapes how I show up in strategy rooms, classrooms, and conversations where decisions carry a real weight.
Great, great, great. That was so concrete, Miss Vidya. And let me tell you, this conversation has been incredibly inspiring and a
Mhm.
powerful conversation. Thank you for opening up your journey, sharing your insights, your human side. And let me tell you, today's discussion was not just about strategy, growth, and leadership. It was about reinvention, clarity, impact, and the courage to evolve again and again. So thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much for having me here, Sunny. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And to everyone listening, if there is one thing this episode proves, it is that leadership is not a position. It is a continuous decision. And growth is not something that happens to you, it is something you choose. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, and this has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. Signing off for now. Until next time, stay curious, stay ambitious, and keep becoming the leader you were meant to be. Thank you so much. Have a nice time.